Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Jason Mackey's First 10, a quick hit podcast to get you ready for the day. Today is Thursday, July 18th, and I hope that you had a better travel day back from the MLB All-Star game if you went than I did. I'm currently talking to you from Atlanta. I was in the Atlanta airport for about 3.5 hours today before my flight got canceled, and it was just logistically easier to stay here and fly out tomorrow morning. So I will not be available for a Thursday morning recording, doing this Wednesday night. But in any case, it was fun to see everything, and I will be looking forward to getting home and hope you got home sooner and easier than I did. All right, today, want to sort of set the stage for the Pirates' second half. I have 6 questions I want to get to, things that the Pirates should be focusing on. Maybe we'll get to a few more of those. Want to get into Joe Starkey's column saying Derek Shelton has done a decent job. I actually agree with Joe. It's not a great tease, but I'm going to get into why and a couple more things. But first, want to remind you that we are sponsored by the North Shore Tavern. You don't have to be a baseball fan to love it there. The interior is wall-to-wall Pirates. There are appetizers, entrees, cocktails, and of course, steak and seafood on a sizzling lava stone. Open every day. The North Shore Tavern across from PNC Park is Pittsburgh's home for steak on a stone. So the first of our 6-pack questions, and these are in no particular order, but this is probably the most timely given what we saw at the All-Star game. What happens with Paul Skenes? Talked to Paul late on Tuesday night as he was leaving Globe Life Field, and one of the topics that we broached was the idea of a shutdown. And Paul is very confident. He said he's been looking at his innings and stuff going on that he doesn't think he's going to be in danger of getting into shutdown territory. They were actually lighter than he had thought, and feels confident they won't shut him down. I would agree with that. I think that is exactly what the Pirates want. They want to stay in contention. They want to be able to keep using Paul Skenes and not blow past his innings threshold. We don't know an exact number for that, but I would be surprised if it's beyond about 160 or so. A key to doing that for the Pirates, and this is, the nuts and bolts of the question here, is going to a 6-man rotation. And can the Pirates effectively do that? If you figure Mitch Keller, Paul Skenes, Jared Jones, Bailey Falter, Luis Ortiz, Martin Perez, Quinn Priester, Marco Gonzalez, that's 8 names. So you can say you don't have 2. And to start, you're not going to have Jared Jones or Bailey Falter. I don't think they're going to be too terribly far off, but you need those guys contributing so you can space out Skenes' starts, space out Jones' starts, and keep those guys going, keep the line moving. Maybe you don't use them all in a traditional way. Maybe you use Quinn Priester as a piggyback guy or Luis Ortiz as a bulk guy. I don't know. But you need those guys healthy and productive, and the pitching staff is certainly something that I think is interesting to monitor in the second half. You're also going to get Mike Burrows back at some point. I would think that he makes his MLB debut this year. That certainly seems likely. But of the 8 names I mentioned, you need those guys to be factors in the starting rotation. Next one. What happens at the trade deadline? That's the biggest question, right? Probably the most talked about thing going on with this team. Did they add? Did they not? Did they sell? I don't think they'll sell. There's a couple tweeners that I'm a little curious with, but there's an opportunity to do something here, and I do think they will. Some names that have sort of been bandied about that I think make sense: Taylor Ward, J.J. Bleday, Tommy Pham. You can go a couple different routes with what the Pirates have here. I think they'd probably lean away from like a true rental. I think if the Pirates get somebody, it's going to be somebody with a little bit of term on that contract. They have him for a couple years under control. J.J. Bleday out of that group and the group of available outfielders is probably my pick. I'd like to see them add a bat, though. I do think about their outfield mix. And, in right field, I mean, maybe you can get by with Joshua Palacios, Connor Joe, create a bit of a platoon there. You're going to keep Connor Joe in the mix in some fashion. We've seen they're going to keep giving at bats to Jack Sawinski. But if you look at their offense, it hasn't been good enough. And that's my third question. But, as far as the trade deadline, I'd like to see them add. I think they need to add. They have an interesting question on what they do with Aroldis Chapman. I think it might be the biggest, it could go either way kind of thing. $10.5 million, obviously playing an important part of their bullpen. Does another team value that? Do the Pirates want to move off of that? I hope not. I think it's the smartest move for them to keep Chapman. We'll see what they do. As far as the offense, and this is my third question I'm going to get to before the break, can the offense improve? Can it not only be a little bit more consistent, but just score more runs? I was talking to Brian Reynolds in the National League clubhouse on Tuesday kind of about this, and some other thoughts going into the second half of the season. That's one of the things that he brought up. We need to find a way to score more runs. And I would say score more on volume, but also do so more consistently. Right now, they're 21st in runs with 402. They have the fifth most strikeouts, but they're only 21st in home runs. So strike out less, get on base more, a little bit more pop, hit with runners in scoring position, that kind of thing, and force the issue with other teams. All right, going to take a short break. We have our usual message from the Bradenton Area Convention and Visitors Bureau. I want to talk to you a little bit more on the other side.
Embrace the laid-back charm of island life while sinking your toes in the sand and discovering real, authentic Florida in the Bradenton area. Unspoiled beauty and pristine beaches, a vibrant waterfront downtown energized by local arts and culture, fresh Floridian cuisine with a flourish of rich history, and friendly locals ready to welcome you to this preserved paradise on Florida's Gulf Coast. Plan your visit today at BradentonGulfIslands.com.
That I think the Pirates can pay attention to or can improve the fundamental stuff. And a lot of people like to lump that on Derek Shelton. It's not just Derek Shelton. A lot of it's on the players, to be honest with you. But, not making the first or last out at third base, running the bases well, not getting picked off, executing routine plays. The Pirates over the past month have gotten better with that stuff. But I would argue there's still a little bit of room to grow. I want to see where that goes. Two individual player things that I think should be on their radar. The fifth question, Ke'Bryan Hayes and what happens with him. We saw last year over the final 2 months how effective this offense could be if Ke'Bryan Hayes is healthy and productive. Are we getting back to that? We might be. Over his last 15, Ke'Bryan's hitting .328 with a 701 OPS. There's a lot of singles in there. You'd like to see a little bit more gap-to-gap power. Only 2 extra base hits. But he's been better. He has been better. I'm curious if he's starting to find it, if they can get him a little bit more rest, keep him fresh, that sort of thing. Need Hayes to contribute. Last question, what happens behind the plate? Joey Bart's been excellent. 802 OPS in 33 games back there. He's basically become the starting catcher. Do we see Henry Davis again? Does Jason DeLay come back? What do they do with Yasmani Grandal? I'm not sure. I think results are going to dictate a lot. Grandal has been a disappointing signing, certainly. I mean, at this point, I would argue that he is a backup at best, maybe Paul Skenes' personal catcher, but they need somebody to take charge of that position, and it seems like it has been Joey Bart. All right, next topic. Joe Starkey wrote that Derek Shelton has been doing a decent job. I thought it was a very good column by Joe, and I agree with him. I think Shelton takes a lot of flack from people who are upset about the Pirates for understandable reasons, but it's not necessarily his fault. It's not Derek Shelton's fault that a lot of the offseason acquisitions have not performed up to expectations. He's got to roll out a lineup that is productive. And if the players aren't productive, what do you want him to do? Now, I don't love the way he makes and changes lineups sometimes. I don't think any of you do either. And he certainly made mistakes with that. And it's not saying that Derek Shelton has done an elite job. And that's not the point of Joe's column. But, they've dealt with a lot of crap this season. And Joe went to outline the David Bednar injury to start the season. Paul Skenes not starting the season until May 11th. He didn't mention this, but it's a valid point. Rowdy Tellez not really giving them much of anything for 2 months. We talked about some of the offensive struggles, specifically in the outfield. Young players they expected to contribute. Henry Davis and Jack Sawinski really haven't given them much. Marco Gonzalez and Martin Perez have been hurt for various stretches. Shelton's kept it all together. I don't think it's as bad as maybe seems on the outside. A couple of quick hit points to follow. Kind of a newsy day in Pittsburgh sports, but Jeff Capel is signed to a 3-year extension, Pitt men's basketball coach. Well-deserved, in my opinion. Very much expected it. Capel has done awesome things for Pitt basketball, making the Panthers relevant again. His last 2 teams have won 46 games, 26 of those coming in ACC play. Pitt earned its first NCAA tournament victory in 7 years at the conclusion of the 22-23 season, advanced to the second round for the first time, I think since 2014. But good on him. I liked seeing what Jeff Capel did for Bub Carrington, getting him to the league. They've brought in other talented recruiting classes. Very much a well-deserved extension. Don't want to see Capel go anywhere. I want to see that momentum continue. Last point is Brandon Aiyuk from the 49ers requesting a trade. There's more and more smoke to this story. Keep thinking it's going to go away, and it doesn't. And it doesn't. Now you have George Pickens putting something on Instagram about him, whatever. I still have a tough time seeing this come together. The draft capital that it's going to cost, what Ayuk's second contract is going to look like. This year is reasonable. It's $14.124 million. It's the last year of his rookie contract, but Aiyuk is obviously wanting paid from your receiver. We're talking around $30 million a year. I think that's a lot for the Steelers. If you're going to think about extending George Pickens, which I would think they are, you're going to pay two guys like that? No, I am all in on them getting a better wide receiver 2 option opposite Pickens. I have some questions whether it's going to be Aiyuk. I mean, obviously he's a tremendous player, not taking anything away from that. Just a little bit surprised if you're going to find a fit. We'll find out more. I'm sure the smoke is going to keep coming, and we'll see if anything gets done. I'll be traveling back to Pittsburgh on Thursday. No First 10 on Friday. I'm actually going to be hosting the North Shore Drive with Brian Batkill. We'll talk about all things Pittsburgh sports on that. Make sure you like and subscribe. You can get this video and that video and all of the stuff from our Post-Gazette writers and columnists. And yeah, have a great weekend, everybody. We'll be back here next week. Talk to you then.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.